Some sadist at Reflections Interactive had a thought. I shall make the world's most difficult opening/training level for a game ever and slap it right at the beginning of a much-anticipated getaway driving Rllmuk. That game was Driver on the original PlayStation. It was superb. The opening training section is a cause of many a PTSD flashback for players of a certain age, demanding a series of specific moves in a restricted space, allowing only a few mistakes, and all against a tight time limit. I am an expert though, so it only took me 3 tries to nail it for this recording. Regardless, someone at Reflections, it could have been the same sadist, had a follow-up thought. What if we take Driver's introductory training level, its frustration and difficulty and all that good stuff, and stretch it across an entire game? Thus, Stuntman was born. A 2002 PS2 release and a 2003 Game Boy Advance release I'm going to ignore for the purposes of this video. It was Driver's opening training level writ large, demanding a series of exacting commands to be followed with little room for any sort of mistake, zero room for your own interpretation, and all set against a tight time limit. Stuntman was sadism incarnate, emphasis on car, naturally. It was a game born from the embers of arcade-style screw you made a tiny mistake, time to fail now difficulty levels. It was a game that would cause fury, smashing, broken controllers, and much pouting. It was also a game of satisfying driving mechanics, great for 2002 graphics, and an incredibly tight focus considering the time it released, which was still 2002. Where everyone else was rushing to put as much as possible into the GTA 3 alikes they were getting ready to pump out, Stuntman boiled its premise down to, well, the title of the game. You took control of a stuntman and you did stunts for different films and some stunt shows on the side. That's it. That was the entire premise. Quick side note that yes, Reflections did join in the rush to put out its own GTA alike in Driver 3, but that's not the point here, so if you need to learn about that, go to Mini-Me's videos on the game because they're really good. Anyway, Stuntman stood out. It was proud of its solitary focus and determined to get across to the player that this was a role you were playing. You were never racing in any of its levels, never trying to get one up over the other drivers around you, never trying to be the best of anyone out there. You had a job to do, you would fail if you didn't do that job, and you were marked according to how well you did do that job. To me, in, yes, 2002, that was a bold way of making you play a game. Yes, the checkpointed time limits and the scoring system, the money you earned, added naturally video gamey ranking aspects to things, but you were only ever competing against yourself, your ability to hit your markers, and your ability to handle the multitude of vehicles Stuntman threw at you. And that you threw over corkscrew jumps. Alright, pause a second there. You weren't only competing against yourself and honing your skills. Stuntman was hard, sure, but at times that veered into punishing territory, sometimes even unfair. That was the element that tipped the balance, realistically speaking, and left the game one consigned to the history books, remembered a bit but not really celebrated in any specific way. Except for when old men like me talk about it, obviously. That unforgiving nature had an appeal. The drive, there's a pun, to repeat a level and do it over. To keep on going through the series of stunts dictated to you until you had them all committed to memory and every single little twitch of the controller was accounted for ahead of time. That was pure gaming. Still is. But Stuntman being so very unforgiving of even the most minor infractions threw a spanner in the works. Nudge the car you're chasing because the other idiot wasn't going fast enough? Failed. Barely keep control of the car around a corner thanks to the impressive yet simultaneously insane driving physics? Well, that 2 seconds extra you took means you'll miss the next checkpoint. Failed. And it wasn't even getting it wrong in the traditional too slow, hit the wrong things ways that could be your undoing. Playing a driving game with time-limited checkpoints, like a driving game with time-limited checkpoints, could nudge her up a run. Like the shot where you're required to jump through a train carriage. Get there too slow, you've missed it and you can't make the jump. Get there with plenty of time left on the clock and the train's not there yet, so you'll miss the stunt. That in and of itself, you being able to be too early for something makes absolute sense. Stuntman takes place on various film sets, from a Mockney gangster caper through a Dukes of Hazzard ripoff and onto a James Bond parody, among others. So they're all controlled areas where everything else, aside from you, is following a set pattern of predictable behaviour, exactly what a real-life stunt performer would need on a film set. But it's in adding those video gamey elements like checkpoints and a clock counting down that the game's internal logic clashes with its desire to present traditional driving game mechanics. You're naturally in a rush to hit that next checkpoint before time runs out, so your inclination is to whiz through things as fast as you can to get to the next yellow gate, only to be penalised for your Pavlovian need to perform in a video game. It's not ruinous. You get used to it and factor it into your future runs, but it's jarring, and it displays one of a fair few failings of a game that ended up a bit further away than I wanted it to be from being a true classic. And it's things like that stuff I've just blathered on about that led to the critical reception of the day, varying from 7s and 8s, maybe a 9, who knows, to the likes of beloved UK games mag Edge doling out a slap in the face of a 5, a score I absolutely disagree with, alongside actual review text that I probably couldn't agree with more if I tried. That's the sort of game Stuntman was, and is. I'm mixing past and present tense, deal with it. A curious game. Curious and annoying and compelling all at the same time, the review opens. Games that demand repetition, and Stuntman is about as repetitive as games get, need to have quality gameplay underpinning the structure, it continues. But Stuntman is too rigid. It requires almost pixel-perfect driving and gives the player little creative freedom to showboat. And that's right. It's absolutely unequivocally right, as far as I'm concerned. I do not disagree with a single bit of that copy. I just take it all as a positive, rather than a failure of the game. The review concludes, Stuntman is sure to divide people into two distinct camps. For those with a calm demeanour and oodles of patience, the game can be strangely compelling and worthwhile. Others, however, may just want to break something in despair and utter frustration. 5 out of 10? Nah. 7. A genuine, non-joke 7. A great 7. A should have been better, but wasn't 7. A 7 that still makes me grind my teeth down to nubs, but equally keeps me playing levels on repeat for an hour solid because this time I'm going to nail every single command the director barks at me. Or maybe next time. Or the time after that. I do think there's something to be said for the gaming landscape and how it's changed in the 23 years since Stuntman came out. Hopefully I'll remember to put the opening from The Sound of Silence here to acknowledge the terrifying passing of time, but if not, just take a break to sing it to yourself here and come straight back. But yeah, back when Stuntman launched, we were in a very different world, still building up the experiences we could have in games, very much an arms race of more levels, more characters, more vehicles, more map size, more different styles of game in one package. We were finally realising we'd stepped fully out of the shadow of the arcades. No longer could coin-up games dictate the style and fundamental design underlying what we played at home. We would play big, epic experiences that allowed us to explore and be free, to mix on foot with driving, shooting with racing, whatever else with whatever other else. In the midst of this grand awakening, Stuntman was a throwback. It stood out, but for the wrong reasons to some. It had the graphics of a modern game, but that fundamental underlying design had much more in common with the punitive arcade experiences we thought we wanted to move away from. But now we're in a world of roguelikes and souls-likes and endless attempts to be absolutely perfect in our playthroughs of the hardest of the games just so we can show the rest of the world how bloody great we are. I genuinely think the mood has shifted to the point where a game like Stuntman, not literally Stuntman for PS2 as it does have its foibles, but a game like Stuntman could get some serious appreciation through what it lays out there for players. We all love our endless license tests on Gran Turismo, the infinite micro-challenges in Forza Horizon, and all of that jazz. Most of the jazz being in Gran Turismo. So a game covering that sort of thing, small challenges but souped up with less twitchy handling, a bit more forgiving, sacking off some of the too gamey elements, you'd be onto a winner. Endlessly shareable moments, utter gobshites boasting of their skill all over socials. The memes! Publishers, you can thank me later. I hadn't played Stuntman since around 2002 when I first loaded it up for this video. It's always lived rent-free in my brain pan, and I've always wanted to go back to it. I think this time around I was able to play it with a lot less fury and a lot less shouting and far fewer broken controllers, because I'm much more accustomed to games these days demanding I try and try and try again as they ruthlessly fail me for the minorest of infractions. Or for going with a shit joker. Balatro. But for all of my softening of rage, for all my willingness to do that trying and trying and trying again, I didn't get past the Bangkok movie levels this time. That's the third film of 6. Not even the halfway point. Maybe one day I'll finish it. I was tempted to pad this video out with footage from elsewhere of the other levels, but nah, I'll stick with my honest, straightforward failure to progress. It's much more in character for me. All the same, I'm still qualified to say this. Stuntman was ahead of its time, in some ways. And I do think the broader gaming audience has caught up by now, to the point that some kind of neo-Stuntman would be well received. But in the real world, where just Stuntman exists, it was a good game and a unique experience. What do you mean there was a sequel? I've never played. Oh, for Thanks to my patrons on Patreon, each and every one of them, without fail, can complete Driver's opening tutorial mission with a maximum of 2 mistakes, guaranteed. Gain that skill by joining them. Or even YouTube memberships, which I should start making jokes about really, given how pointless it is. I'm off to see if a 2016 Volkswagen Sharon can hit a corkscrew ramp without the pram falling out the boot. Bye, Mill!